at the American Independence Museum for the last Beer for History of the season. Today we are joined by Butch from Earth Eagle Brewing.
Got it.
Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What do you got on the menu today?
Well, we've got three pretty interesting beers here. We brewed a special brew for this event called Phipps Craft. And there's an interesting story about that name that we'll be talking about a little later. But it's based on a 1600s beer recipe from a book written for farmers' wives. And so there's a number of rather unusual ingredients in there, and as some of the people will attest to, it's an unusual brew. But hopefully a little sort of a time machine in a glass, you know.
Very cool.
What it might have tasted like back then. The other two beers, next is the Amarillo Dancer, which is sort of a traditional pale ale, very well hopped with Amarillo hops. And then the last one is pretty unusual as well. It's called Wild Thing. Historically significant in that a lot of times beers in those days and before were spontaneously fermented. So if there was yeast in the air or yeast in some of the materials that they used in the beer, it would ferment the beer. So we actually cultured yeast off of blueberries, rhubarb, and something else that's escaping me right now, and actually fermented the beer out with those ingredients. So it's a real sour beer. Yeah.
Interesting, very interesting.
So yeah, so interesting spread tonight.
Now you also have an on-site location in Portsmouth. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Earth Eagle Brewings, we have a brewery and a gastropub. We've been open for almost 5 years. At any given time, 6 or 7 of the beers on tap will be ours, and 6 or 7 will be guest beers, ideally from other local brewers. Full menu, lunch and dinner, full bar, wine, sake, absinthe, whatever, all sorts of goodies.
Oh, we're just getting that.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Sounds like a great place to visit.
Yeah.
And one more question for you tonight. What got you into brewing personally?
I've just been a long-time beer geek. You know, I really always went out of my way to try some new style or a beer from a different country or whatnot. So this was sort of this is where it can take you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks so much for talking with me tonight.
You're very welcome.
Thanks.
During the last Beer for History of the season, guests joined in for a custom museum scavenger hunt and even had the special treat of Lexi's Burger Bus for tailor-made burgers. After enjoying a beer, burger, and game, it was time for a significant historical story.
Thank you all for coming tonight. I just wanted to say a few quick words. My name is Emma. I'm the executive director here of the museum. Thank you all so much for coming tonight to our last Beer for History of the season. It's awesome that you all are here. We appreciate it so much. All of the proceeds from tonight's events goes to support our nonprofit museum to help preserve this building and our Lad Gilman House on the Hill, and goes to support our collections and future programs. So we hope to bring back this series next year as well, maybe even with a couple more. We'll see, but we've been very happy with the turnout, so thank you all for being here. I want to take a couple moments to thank all the people who made tonight possible. Earth Eagle Brewings for being here and bringing some awesome beers and brewing one just for us, so thank you. Granite State Growler Tours as well for being here. Thank you. We really appreciate it. We appreciate all the support they've given us. If you haven't been out already, Lexi's Burger Bus is out back, so be sure to get your burgers. You can eat them in the tavern. That's fine with us. So make sure you get your burgers as well. And then I also want to introduce Kevin, who is with the law firm that sponsors this event, Hopeful Phoenix, Gormley & Roberts. They have supported this event for the event series for the past 2 years. They've been incredible partners. So I want to introduce Kevin and have him say a few words as well. So thank you, Kevin.
My name's Kevin Baum. I'm impressed. I'm with Hopeful Phoenix, Gormley & Roberts, which is not easy to say. You nailed it.
I had 3 times the already.
Yeah, it was great. And we are very proud and very happy to be the sponsor for the 2nd year in a row. I live here in Exeter. I'm excited to give back to the community and be a part of this and have an excuse to drink beer at the same time. So it's worked out great. No, it's been a great event. It's been a great partnership. Thank you to the museum and thank you all for being here tonight. I hope you're having a great time.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all for being here. We have a lot of other great programs coming up at the museum. Be sure to come back and visit us. Our season ends at the beginning of December. We have some great holiday events, so be sure to check our website. We have brochures downstairs. And I also want to turn it over at this point to a historian who's with us tonight, who's going to talk a little bit about the significance of today and how it relates to Exeter history. So you got to get a little bit of history while you're at the museum tonight. So here is Dr. Tricia Pion, who is going to tell us a little bit more about today's date and its significance.
Hi. So one of tonight's beers, Phips Craft, is named for the Royal Governor of Massachusetts, William Phips. And that is because on this day, today's date, 325 years ago, the Royal Governor of Massachusetts, William Phips, wrote a letter to the Privy Council in London informing them that he was ending the Salem witch trials. The Salem witch trials being one of the most infamous episodes in American history. I'm sure most people are familiar with it. Phips was the royal governor. He was surprised when he had returned in the spring of 1692 to Massachusetts from a trip to London to find that there were hundreds of people in jail on charges of witchcraft. And it just so happens that one of those people, Samuel Wardwell, was from Exeter. So there's a local connection to the Salem witch trials. Samuel Wardwell, his parents were followers of John Wheelwright, the non-conforming minister who founded the town of Exeter, or was one of the founders. And his parents came here in the 1630s. Samuel Wardwell was born in 1643. He lived in Exeter for a few years and then Boston, where he became a carpenter, before moving to Andover, Massachusetts, where he was famous, apparently, amongst the locals for telling fortunes. He would read palms of young girls and tell them answers to the most pressing concerns, being who they would marry and how many children they would have. So in 1692, Samuel Wardwell, formerly of Exeter, was accused of witchcraft by his neighbors, brought in for questioning. He confessed that he had made a deal with the devil for 20 years in order to have powers such as fortune telling and the ability to summon cattle. A pretty useful skill. His neighbors testified against him. He was convicted, although a few weeks before his execution, he recanted his confession and said that he had belied himself, hoping that he would not be executed. And on September 22nd, he was hanged with 7 other people. It turned out to be the last hanging, and that was because Governor William Phips, of Phips Craft fame, ended the trials because of his concerns about the kind of evidence that was being used against people like Samuel Wardwell. One of those sort of legal difficulties being the fact that people were confessing to witchcraft based on accusations that spirits or apparitions of themselves had sort of walked around the town and were afflicting people. So after they stopped using that kind of evidence of ghosts, basically, to convict people of witchcraft, they ended the trials. But unfortunately, Phips's efforts were too late for Samuel Wardwell, and he was executed on the 22nd in Salem.
Thank you. Thank you all again. Have a beer, enjoy the